The first congratulations of the evening has to go to all of you for arriving. I tried to make life as difficult for all of you as possible by A, changing the location, B, producing as crap a map as possible, and C, producing the weather, but I'm glad to see you still made it. There's some special congratulations for tonight. I was impressed at first to find Andy Palmer coming over from Jersey, until Thursday, when somebody happened to speak on email to Carrie, and as she sat there she thought, the ULSA dinner meet? I didn't receive an invitation, bugger. I'll go and give her grief. Rang at the airport and within 5 hours was on a plane from San Francisco to England. She has to go back tomorrow, so I think she deserves a special congratulations for making it. Needless to say, following such a fine example from Carrie, I'm disappointed in Watty's absence. I expected better. I was waiting at the airport this morning for the planes from Indonesia, but none arrived.
That why didn't you came, man?
So, in the light of Watty's absence, what better man could I find than to replace him than a certain Mr. John Cooper?
Boring bastard! Where's the band?
I've got a bloody lot to read here, so if you shut up and give me a chance to read it, it'll all be over fairly soon.
Is that the speech?
You wish.
Give us a rant, John.
I've had a good look through this speech, which I received about half an hour ago, so you'll appreciate that I'm really familiar with its content.
It's at least 3 hours ago.
Yes, at least 3 hours ago, Helen tells me. So I apologise for reading a lot of it. I've made a few little bits up as well, so here we go. Right. Good evening, this is Watty speaking, so you have to have a good imagination. Good evening and welcome to the 38th annual dinner meet, and I believe ULSA's 30th. Every year, another bloody anniversary, still I hope you It all sounds too much like Watty. It says here, we're planning to have a live satellite link-up from Indonesia to the Dales. But unfortunately, this had to be cancelled when the management of the Matahari department store complained about the misuse of their security cameras. However, you'll be pleased to hear that the business in question mysteriously burnt to the ground last week. Instead, I've had to rely on more traditional means and have sent this speech nailed to the back of a fruit bat, which didn't survive the journey, unfortunately. While you're all gathered here, I might as well use this occasion to make a couple of announcements. Firstly, I am now back on email and eagerly await your messages. And secondly, if Mr. Adrian Greenwood would like to mail me, he should pay full postage next time, as I had to spend 3 months in Bogor Post Office. Sorry, there's something about a PC and the wrong address, but I've missed it. It says, if there are any errors or omissions, blame them and not me, whatever that means. Okay, so what has ULSA been doing over the last week? Tell me. The saga of the first of the year's discoveries actually began... I apologise for this, but I've got to do it. It's all Watty stuff here. Actually began before last year's dinner meet, when Beardy, accompanied by a number of red noses, so red nose people, investigated a passage above the Grand Cascade in Pippakin, where I've been, and they might as well not have bothered, because it's bloody horrible. Suffice it to say that if you go in from the bottom and come out at the top, it's like coming out through a certain private part of someone else's anatomy. I won't mention what part, but I'm sure you've all got a good enough imagination for that. Over the course of the year, it was forced for 400 metres via several unpleasant squeezes, I can vouch for that. to a pitch and to the surface just beneath Leckfell House. The new entrance is probably the highest in the Eastgill system and something of a bastard, and it was called by George Pott. Last year's brilliant summer also saw Beardy & Co. again, lots of name dropping here. He should be up here instead of me. He's done a lot more cave finding than I have this year. Saw him in high-level mud caverns in Mossdale. 2 trips led to the discovery of 200 metres of heavily drafting passage. Bloody smell to it, that. Very bloody smell, lots of planting. The main problem with that is nobody's ever going to go back and have a look there to see if it is heavily drafting or not. To a Hayden cavern. Anniversary chamber. Unfortunately, the extension currently ends in a huge boulder choke. What a surprise. A return is planned whenever the weather improves. Yes. Right. Work has continued in Echo Pot, where various people have apparently begun to install a central heating system at the end of the dig. Bloody good speeches, I wish I'd written. I'm also informed that digging has occurred in Fountains Fell, presumably amid much secrecy, and to what end I have not been told, nor do the diggers themselves have any idea. Activity has continued on the diving front, though this year you'll not get the annual reports on the progress down New Gordon because there hasn't been any. Last June, ULSA divers visited the Gingling Hole extensions via the sump at the base of the Big Rift route, and some minor discoveries were made. However,
God, is that it?
I'm sorry, there's 4 more pages here. Shall I have a break while you all go to the bar? However, they were so impressed with the huge potential for fame, glory and extensive ranting that a return is planned later this year. Warthog and Alien have been diving in Rawdy Cave and Wildbow Fell and have passed a further 3 sumps with some large dry passage in between. Only to be I didn't know any of this. Bloody marvellous, this speech stuff. Only to be halted by the inevitable terminal boulder choke. According to the latest CDG newsletter, Polyphil,
He's not here tonight.
he's not here, I didn't think I'd see him, has been diving just about everything, including the U-bend in the Gentshire Rhino, and has been rewarded with some significant discoveries. There we are. I've heard of whippet fanciers and horse fanciers, but, you know, there we go. Boom fanciers I've never heard of before. In Landcliffe, he redived Poseidon Sump below Nemesis Boulder Choke and appears to have found a way on into another underwater boulder choke with no possible way out. Fortunately, in autumn, the UFRA managed to collapse the choke below Boiro Falls Chamber. Let's hope. Let's hope. It's not a misprint. Let's hope it can be reopened before the summer. Right. With some work going on in both Mossdale and Landcliffe, perhaps this year we'll see some major discoveries, huge unstable boulder chokes notwithstanding. A small cave diving expedition is planned to the Vacour region in France this July to continue the exploration of a major stream cave investigated in '94. Hopefully this too will see the discovery of huge quantities of new cave and nobody will plummet to a near-death experience from an haven. I was surprised to hear recently that Mr. Andrew, you'll never get me underwater, you're all insane Tharrett. Is he here? I know he's hiding in the back somewhere. Where is he? Sorry, I just couldn't do the voice there. Mr. Monaco's better at it than me. Has recently joined the ranks of cave diving fraternity. Following on from the ULSA Explorations Journal 2, Paul Monaco has recently finished editing the Northern Sump Index and should be congratulated for his effort in producing this impressive and comprehensive volume. Thank you, Paul. And it says here, like the Explorations Journal, has been awarded this year's Trattman Award for speleological literature. So the William Shakespeare of the caving world, I give you Mr. Paul Monaco. I believe his new project is a new life of Mr. Dave Brooke. So that's awaited with bated breath. I believe further congratulations are in order. If we forget last year's post-dinner meet pendulum episode, we appear to have an entire year without recourse to the services of the Crow. It's a remarkable year. I believe there have been some close calls, but no actual call-outs. The Crow notice board must be looking quite empty at the moment. Let's hope we can keep this up, Andy, and avoid any embarrassment over the next year as well. Yes, hear there. September saw 5 ULSA members swapping wives for wetsuits for salopettes. Loads of misprints in here. For flying to India on Operation Plywood Overcoat. With the intention of tickling an unclimbed 7,100 metre peak. Now, due to us, this is an interesting excursion from the truth here. Due to a slight oversight on the part of one of the members of the expedition, the provision manager made an error on the manifest, and instead of ordering, I have to digress here a little bit and explain that several of the members are heavily into curry, and they have a special delight in poppadoms of all flavours. Now I'm afraid to say that the misprint was quite a serious one, and I've got a few examples of them here, because the lads received, instead of 2,000 poppadoms, they received these, which, on the face of it, they were called chocodons. The lads were convinced that these particular items were the latest space-age freeze-dried Indian takeaway. And therefore, over several weeks of the expedition, were frequently to take them out of their packet, to tuck them into the palm of their mouth and to chew for several hours, convinced that the energy propelled them up the mountain. That's disgusting. It wasn't until several weeks later that this is the last remaining packet out of 2,000 chocodons. So I had to ask Mr. Paul Monaco, who was in fact the provisions manager of the expedition, to come up and receive this fine presentation. Right, where am I? Okay. Unfortunately, due to bad weather, they had to turn back only 7,000 metres from the summit. It's amazing what an astronaut does. From the summit, due to appalling weather. But luckily they all returned safely, and I know we're all glad to hear that. Even if one member was apparently barefooted, and he turned out to be a huge hairy stranger whose behaviour was quite abominable. It's about as true as everything else I've heard. On the social scene, there was one in October. Anyway, October saw a bizarre day and the arrival of 55 keen freshers. The majority, so I've been told, being female. Where are they? Exactly, Rob. I might ask you that question, mate. Just how many have survived such perils as Rich T? I don't know why you get this reputation. I mean, if I was cruel, I could think of several other people who deserve it more. But I'm not cruel. So, Rich T and the shark... Shit, my name's in it. Mr. Cooper's infamous freshers trips. I don't know what that means. Or being ranted to death by our older members. There's none of them here, so we don't need to worry about them. Okay, I'm not certain, though I'm assured that some have survived to make this dinner meet. But I don't recognise anyone from any of the trips that I've been on, so I suppose there must be a grain of truth in that. I believe a number of our older club... I've nearly finished. A number of our older club members have moved to Calverley and set up a little ghetto in a place called Obscurity Terrace. I can't say I've ever heard of it. And there is a recent rumour that the whole of the membership of the NPC are planning to move to said terrace in the near future, so we await recent developments there. I'm informed that the Pennine Hut was a success and only 35 quid's worth of damage this year. Quite remarkable considering it was held on Guy Fawkes night. The mountain hut meet was also re-established at the new year. I hear that Jeremy has taken over as cook. And he did a sterling job.
Yeah, there was about 10 people sick.
Very successfully on all accounts, and there's an interesting note from Mr. Watt here. Perhaps I'll not have to return after all. I put pause for a large cheer there, but it wasn't that large, so I dare say he'll be back next year. You'll be glad to hear that I have finally run out of things to say, so I return to my dinner meat for one. This is a bit bloody pitiful. Sad git what? And a bottle of lukewarm bintang. Now I put here a pseudonym for poontang, if anybody knows what that means. And let you get on with the rest of the evening's entertainment. Have an excellent evening, drink until you drop, and mine's a pint of Tetley's. Over to you, Helen. I've left my beer.
Blanket. Is that that one? Okay, going back a year in time. I was exceptionally keen. I particularly remember Rob saying to me, "It's okay, you don't have to do anything till September." Nothing happened. And I believed him. A few hours after he delivered his parting speech, I wandered quite happily out of the pub from the dinner meet and found a fight going on between the locals and ULSA. ULSA, of course, pulverising the locals. I must confess, I didn't quite understand what was going on at the time. I held a bit of abuse at one of the locals and found it was a policeman, so left. The next day we went to Malham Cove, still content in the fact I had nothing to do to September. I had then to deal with a crow call-out and the meeting of the friendly policeman who loves us and knows us well. At this stage in life, I begin to think, bugger, what the hell am I doing? And I took a closer look at the committee to see how we could cope with such goings-on for the next year. And I found we had a vital element just there in our committee, ready to see us through the year. And that is what's commonly known as a stress absorber. Throughout the year, and I have to say thank you here, whenever I felt worried about anything, I've always thought, don't worry, somebody's more worried than you. But this in turn has led me to some concern. As some of you may know, I have a slight bit of medical background, and I got my textbooks out, and I felt the amount of stress being placed on this person might be slightly too much. And so I looked through my textbooks, and I got a referral address out. Don't know if you can see that. I managed to find a trauma clinic. Tony, please.
Hook myself in.
Good, Tony!
To your clinic, but because I felt I wanted an on-the-hand help feed, because tonight's quite a stressful night, I gave him a quick ring earlier.
Spain,
It's in Spain, you'll like it. They prescribed some tranquilizers, I ate half of them, I'm sorry. No, stay here, please.
I'm getting too much stress.
Oh wait. While Tony's here, I must admit, throughout the year, the committee does receive a certain amount of stress for being a non-caving committee. I'd like to, it's actually based on fiction, up till Christmas. But, this is actually totally wrong, because there is one member of our committee that is a well-known underground personality. In his first year, and that might give it away, seeing as 2/3 of the committee's female, the quote down bar pot, I believe, was, Why don't you kill me? It would be easier to take my body out. Right, keep going. But come to the second year, it was easily surpassed. But before I give Tony's version of the story, I'd like to just set the scene for you. We had a day of a large Thrift exchange. I happened to be on the group going from large to Rift. A fine trip I felt. On our trip, a certain member who shall remain nameless managed to get stuck on the second pitch in large for 40 minutes, I believe. It was a total accident. I forgot to take my cow's tails off as I went down, and I apologise to everyone that was waiting at the bottom for stuff for me. Coming out, going up to the re-belay, 2 females, one in a row, first spent 50 minutes on approximately 30 foot of SRT and a re-belay, second followed with a close 45 minutes. But this in turn was made even better by the de-rigger, Jeremy the String King. Sorry, Ella. Jeremy got to the re-belay, which was a free here hanging re-belay. He was practicing his de-rigging at the time and thought, superb, I'll de-rig, forgetting to pass it first. Having emerged from such a trip with 7 hours delay, we thought, Ace, we'll meet the other group and head back to Leeds, BTL, quick brew and bed. But the other group wasn't there. Fine, a quick kip in a car. 3 hours later I woke at the front of the car thinking, where did the other group go? On returning to the entrance of Large, I found all of the other group out, bar one, who had taken a fancy to the pitch that I got stuck in briefly on the way down. And the quote was, just leave me here to die.
The rocks that rode around.
However, ULSA is a persevering club, and at 5 a.m, the whole group, having gone down at 2 on the day before in the afternoon, emerged from the cave.
I believe it was 7.
7 in the morning. Okay, 7 in the morning. This is a trip that's much remembered by all the tackle store, but I'm not sure that Tony remembers it in quite the way he should. So Tony, I'd like to provide an everyday reminder of this trip for you.
Yeah. A large bus!
At this point in time, I would like to make a formal apology to all members of the tackle store that searched the bins for this teapot. I'd also like to apologise to Jess that managed to replace the teapot. Thank you, Tony. You've been a star to have on the committee. I can honestly say the committee would not have run so well. Did it run well? I don't know. So well without Tony, because he was a total star.
Only 25.
It was ace. But there are other factors that make the committee run well, and one is constructive criticism. If you know what you're doing wrong, you can sort it out. However, occasionally it gets a bit much, to be honest. Gavin, I'm going to say, where did you go? Yeah. I'll say this as a warning to you. Constructive criticism. Take it fairly, act on it. But from time to time it comes worth just ignoring it, to be honest. I have 2 culprits in mind at this stage in life, and just to give a few examples, one a minor one. Tickets, I hope you all noticed the tickets, those that received them. They were superb. They took me ages on the computer. I was proud of them. But the quote was, why the hell did you run there? Something along the lines of, why spend so much time? Nobody looks on them. But the map that took me no time, and admit it was crap. But basic committee graphics, I see nothing's changed. A better example, perhaps, the Pennine Hut. Initially, the sign went up with a charge of £15. The next day I arrived in crap to find my sign graffitied over with rip off, don't go, they're taking your money. This is more expensive than last year's committee charge. Fair enough. I got together with the people that were catering, went to extensive arrangements and managed to reduce the price to £12. I hope you all appreciate the bargain you were getting there. And a week later, out of curiosity,
I'd say you charged me 15.
A week later, out of curiosity, I checked my cheque stub from the year before. £15. I do believe I undercharged last year's committee by £3. Gavin, to warn you of these people, and I have to admit this is a total chance for revenge, I believe this is one person you need to be careful of. Actually, do you want to hold that up? And there is another. The person to the left of this picture is one you want to take care when approaching. And we'd all like to know what is holding his helmet up.
Huge erection!
But Ben and Rob, to be honest, you've been a superb help over the year, because whenever I've done anything wrong, I have known about it. Maybe 2 months later, through other people, but I have known. And I feel that you may be running out of equipment by now. So just in case, I'd like to present you with your own set of spanners to throw in next year's works.
Thank you very much.
That's alright. You'd be embarrassingly good.
I don't want to remember 13 mil.
I would doubt it very much.
So away from business and onto the social side of ULSA. The most important event of the year, well, the prize of the year, I'm sure you'll agree, is the Sharking Award. As some people might have come up to me in the last few weeks and said, there is no candidate for the Sharking Award. But I disagree, I had to choose. And I'd say that the most dangerous shark to have around is the man-eating shark. Okay, they may only appear occasionally, but they definitely cause great bodily harm when they do. Carla, would you like to come up here for a minute? For those of you that weren't at last year's Pen I Hurt, I'm very proud of being a medic. I was pleased to be called upon to give first aid and wave a bottle of squirty cream to Rob, who I believe is here. Rob, would you like to stand up? Carla actually managed to rip Rob's frenulum of his tongue, which is a bit underneath his tongue, with a rather over-forceful kiss goodnight, I believe. Carla, I've always been proud of you. You turned it as a Pen I Hurt every year. Exceedingly every time. I'd like to present you with the Sharking Award. Guys, you'll be at the corner of the bar later. Okay, so on to the sporting side of ULSA. Carla may well have been caught at times playing tongue hockey with, I do believe it was Tonk.
Controversy!
But a sport that's definitely taken that's been around most of ULSA this year is rugby. Take, for example, the Mountain Hut. I'm proud of the fact we got all over the 35 quid fee for this year's Mountain Hut. Bearing in mind that the game of mattress rugby destroyed 8 of the 12 banisters and I left them balancing on nails. The wall had to be pushed back to be straight rather than curved with the shape of bodies, etc. There were a few other incidents involving somebody that thought the pipe was metal and tried to defrost it with a flame, presuming that would give us a water supply, and then found it was plastic. But the mattress rugby was a game well worth watching. A few heads got trodden on, but only to the improvement of the characters of the person. Even more important than the mattress rugby, though, I believe, was the sofa rugby. The main venue being the tackle store. On the first occasion, the winning team easily managed to fold it in half to get it into the hall. Didn't manage to get it out the front door, but won quite conclusively. The second occasion was even more successful, but unfortunately the winning team ended up sitting on the sofa in the street, and Gavin very wisely locked the door with an abandonment. However, the initiators of this fine game, back to Leeds, has got to be Bill and Ben, the Mendip twins. I managed to capture their crowning moment in the hall of number 101. And I finally want to leg up and nick this. You are our sofa rugby champion.
Well, darling!
And at this stage in life, I'd like to say that if anyone thinks I can come to the tackle store next year and play piano rugby with my piano.
We will win.
Going back to the party, the initial sofa rug, I'd like to mention that the sofa is actually stacked up by bricks and it's a lot more comfy than it ever was before. But going back to the original party, while the group was sitting on the sofa in the hallway, there was a game of pass a balloon filled with water going on in the sitting room. A fine game, except when we went down to the kitchen to fill our large pot afterwards, we found water dripping through the ceiling with the ceiling tiles ending up on the floor. This almost tackle store, the party of the year venue, apart from its inhospitality at one particular occasion. The quote was, "You're leaving and taking your girlfriend with you."
I think he wants to be social secretary. That's been selectively.
How could I award a prize for partying to a venue with such a hospitality? So I had to search elsewhere. And searching through my mind, I came up with a separate party. One that I'll tell from the point of view from Sarah. Little Sarah went to sleep one night quite happily, thinking a quiet, sedate party, nothing going on. She was happily sleeping and happened to wake briefly. When she went to sleep, she was lying next to Emily, a sound choice, I think you'd all agree. When she woke up, in between her and Emily was bread cake half naked. If this wasn't a shock enough, on sitting upright, she found the entire room full of people without trousers on, dancing in a circle. Chanting as well. Add to this, the jelly with, what was it, had it in it, a kind of vodka or something incredibly alcoholic that was poured over any available female over any part of anatomy and licked off enthusiastically. The ballooning breasts, courtesy of Esther. And I think you find we have a candidate for the hostess with the mostess.
You're not wrong.
For those of you that aren't in the know, Esther had to move out of her house the day after. Some of you may ask, what is this special ingredient that Esther has that means she has such a fine party but has to abandon her house? I'd like Esther to come up and receive her prize that will reveal the secret to you all.
I got evicted because I put one of these in the light fitting.
Dirty slap.
I enjoyed it.
Don't want yours saw in these kind of hours.
Overall, it's been a good year for ULSA, but there has been one particularly sad event that I feel needs mentioning and thought about for a moment. With our fresher intake, we had a fresher join us called Ellie Hines. She was only with us for 6 weeks and unfortunately died of meningitis. This is, I think it shocked us all, and I think it's only the freshers of the club that knew her, to be honest. But I think she's made quite a large impression on us in the time she spent with us. Because of that, this year the Paul Potter Prize, which for those of you that have come in this year is awarded in memory of Paul Lyons, who I think is remembered to us almost for abseiling down Allen Cove with his leg in plaster. The Paul Potter Prize will be awarded in memory of Paul and Ellie. The specification I was given for awarding this was for the best fresher of the year, which is actually quite hard. But I actually chose the most persistent fresher of the year. And this fresher in particular joined us at the slideshow, a fine start. At the slideshow she pulled quite spectacularly and became attached. She became attached to Jeremy. And would any of you hang around when you became attached to Jeremy at the slideshow? I expected not to see her again. But at Birkworth, she was back with a vengeance. Taken on a fine caving trip in Furry along the Birkworth Canal, the boat turned upside down. A think to say you got a bit cold and had a bad day would be understatement of the year. But she still came back. Next trip that I noticed her on was Lancaster. I heard rumours that you were almost swept away in the main drain, became extremely exhausted and hypothermic. But still she comes back. The last spot that she's exceptionally well known for is Bar Pot. Rebecca managed to spend 3 hours de-rigged on in Bar Pot. And for this, considering she's still back, I'd like to award her with the Cool Pot Prize. And congratulations. I've got a set of surveys for you as well. But the story of Bar Pot doesn't quite end there. There's two aspects of it. The first is that Footleg, accompanied by 2 fine female freshers, managed to spend 3 hours going from the main chamber to Bar Pot. Quite a significant point, and I'm proud of you for it. But the second point is, I'd like to read a note that was left for us in the tackle store. And it reads like this. Do not de-rig Bar Pot if the new ULSA Troll tackle bag is at the bottom of the big pitch. If the bag is at the top of the pitch, go ahead and de-rig. If you go out before us, take the bag from the bottom of the pitch to the top, so we know to de-rig ourselves. Superb instructions, I was proud of them. But the group in question arrived at the bottom of Bar Pot and found the bag at the bottom. Not that they think, yes, ULSA have been fine and followed our instructions, but they thought they must have gone out by now and not followed and so de-rigged. A couple of hours later on the mistake was noticed, and the search party sent back to honourably recapture Footleg and the 2 freshers.
He was loving it, really.
I'd like to present this to De-Rigger of the Year in 1996, Eric Cannon. So I think that almost brings me to the end of tonight, apart from to say that weather allowing, there will be the usual annual trip to Malham tomorrow. However, you may notice the lack of one rope, along with many others from the tackle store. This is due to our competent tackle master from last year, who happens not to be here.
Not bed.
Who, on not being out of bed when the transport arrived from the tackle store, elected to drag it through the streets of Leeds by looping it over a scaffolding pole. I'd like to show you what's left of the middle of our 110-metre rope that you would have been abseiling on tomorrow. However, we did manage to salvage 2 others, so we will be there. So, I hope you'll have a good night for the rest of tonight. I think we just have the fancy dress left that I've left in Adrian's capable hands, and then it's on with the pints. Adrian.
Right, is that the fancy dress bit?
Hi.
Yeah! This is Jo, the lap lady. She's about to drink